but I've been the go-to person for virtually the world to explain why a weapon, a very successful weapon, which is still used today and in the 5G frequency, why a very successful weapon can also be a domestic, safe instrument for children to use. And of course it can't. And this is the problem. And this is why we are having the brain tumours and the illnesses and the birth defects. This is why all the statistics are coming up. And it's why you are here today. And it is one massive cover-up. If it were one country invading another country with this sort of death rate and suffering rate, it would be classed as genocide, without a shadow of a doubt. I even know some professors that have gone to the World Court to have this registered as genocide and have the industry taken to court. I've given evidence or sent evidence for that. But you're up against the most powerful industry on the planet, backed by the government because of the money they're getting, and because the secret services have the ability to watch and listen to everybody. So you're in a catch-22 if you're the government. You've got all of this information coming in that you can use to spy on people. You have the tens of billions coming in, but you know it's going to cause more deaths and suffering than lead in petrol and smoking and everything else. But it's worth it. To the government, it is worth it.
If you were to summarise in 1 minute, Barry, what is 5G?
5G starts at because it is Wi-Fi enabled, it starts at the 2.4 gigahertz, goes right up to 70 to 80 gigahertz. These are particularly dangerous waveforms because a lot of them interact with the cyclotronic and circadian resident frequencies in the body. They react, they set up resonant frequencies with a lot of the cellular structures in the body. They will cause massive damage in the body without a shadow of a doubt. And at the far end of the 5G frequency range, and there are lots of them, is a new weapon that has just been developed. You won't have heard of it. Its nickname is the Growler. And it is designed for rapid neurological and physiological damage for crowd control, where you send this top end of the 5G frequency down into a crowd or people or demonstrators or people you don't like, and it will cause severe neurological damage, severe physical damage, which may go on for generations. They're not interested in that bit. But 5G, it's the new frequency range, because the others are all being used. The new frequency range, which is probably as or even more dangerous than the 2.4 gigahertz, which is also in the 5G range, and it gives everybody all of the information about you that they want. The information can go two ways. It can be used to harm you, and it can be used to spy on you.
Okay. And can you tell us about smart technology and the word smart? A lot of people are being encouraged to get smart meters. We're seeing smart motorways. A lot of this new smart technology that people are being encouraged to get. Could you tell us a little bit about this and the word smart?
Yeah, I mean, smart, there are quite a few acronyms for smart, and I like them all. But basically, smart meters will set up a mesh, a total Wi-Fi 2.4 gigs, and it's also 868 megahertz. Smart will set up like a fishing net through every single building for a whole district, and everybody will be able to tap into this because it's Wi-Fi, it's in the air. So all of the 56 secret organizations used by the government, people can hack into it as well. Organized crime are already involved in hacking into this. Other foreign governments can hack in. But basically anything that goes out into the air, into this mash, can be used against you, can be used, hacked against you. We'll tell them everything that's going on in your house. They will know when you're in the loo. They will know everybody who is speaking, and I can't go into all the scientific things. They will know how many people are in your house, what is being said, what room you're in, and there will be nothing private.
Could you explain how this 5G and all this new technology is a weapons technology, very briefly, please?
Yeah, absolutely. All microwaves will cause low-level inflammation. Low-level inflammation in the body, and this is published in hundreds, if not tens of thousands of papers now. Low-level inflammation, for instance, very briefly, if it's in the gut, 90% of the serotonin used in the brain is produced in the gut. Low-level inflammation will affect that, which can bring on neurological illnesses, psychological illnesses, psychiatric illnesses. You can also get low-level inflammation in the brain directly, where the brain's autoimmune system is affected. You've got Graves' disease then, where the brain starts attacking itself. Low-level inflammation if you are carrying ovarian follicles to give children. They can be damaged, so your child has a birth defect. If you are pregnant, it is even worse, because the amniotic sac, the fluid, is charged. It's been known since 1745 that water stores electric charge, and the baby, the embryo, the fetus, it grows by passing electric charges from cell to cell to cell. All the cells talk to each other, all of them, all the time. They are little transmitters and generators, and they use the most minuscule electric messages to communicate. And when you have stored charge from microwaves, which cause electric currents to flow in the body, when you have stored charge, then you are looking at ADHD, birth defects, growth defects, all sorts of defects for the embryo and the fetus. And this is why it is published a minimum. If you reach a certain level, and which, according to one document from the World Health Organization, women were exposed to just over the maximum then level, which you can get in a classroom now with all of the computers and all of the smartphones and things, transmitters. They had a minimum, adults, of 48% birth defect rate. For children, it's higher, and the rate is lower.
What's wrong with LED bulbs, Barry? LEDs?
You're going into a different wavelength, but they flicker. It's the same as these things you look at. The what do you call it? The three-dimensional things. They flicker in the eye, and the eye has. A lot of people don't know this, and it's on a sheet I'm going to give you. The eye has radiation detectors in the side, nothing to do with vision. And the radiation detectors in the side, they communicate with quite a few bits in the body, including the brain. And you have systems in your cells that will fight and defend you against radiation. It is a first line of defense. as well as other parts in the brain, like the pineal gland. What these things do is they trigger the body's defences against radiation. But they are, firstly, if you're under the age of 18, your immune system isn't fully up and running anyway, so it really doesn't work on children. And if they are low level, the radiation detectors in the body are programmed to work at a specific threshold. And what the industry have been saying, and the government, we are below that threshold. But they're lying, because below that threshold, all radiation is accumulative. It is what I call industrial genocide, supported by government. But what they are not appreciating, and I had a film crew here not too long ago with a professor representing 3 countries, and he brought experts. There were 11 in all in this little room. And what people are not appreciating, and this is very relevant to Tot Ness, is that genetically all life forms, from us to trees, all life forms right down to bacterium, the cellular structure, we all have the same 4 chemical bases, all of us. Any tree can read your DNA sequence. It won't do it any good, but it can read it. Chemically it can read it and understand it. Anything, any living thing will be subjected to microwaves, because if microwaves can harm humans, and secret documents that I have published show they can. Secret documents show that all microwaves will damage all living tissue. So we're not just damaging us, we are damaging every living thing, every arthropod, in other words all the creepy crawlies and flying things which pollinate 80% of our food supply. They are disappearing because, for the scientists who love this, it's the cryptochrome double electron absorption system that they get messed up, the same as bees. So we are destroying all the insects, the birds, the bees, the trees, all the growing plants. The soil microorganisms are dying, as are just the genetic microorganisms everywhere.
$20,000, as I understand it, studies now show an indication between biological effect from the type of radiation that 5G includes, and that it is, which is both 3 ranges of the spectrum. It's low frequency, essentially, well, they call low 600 to 800 megahertz, and then the mid range, which is like 4G, and that was like 3G, 4G, the mid range, and then the millimeter wave on top of it. So it's not just, and it's not just the same amount of transmitters with 5G. It's like the transmitters have to be closer. And so they pack people together and they have these wireless or 5G or millimeter wave transmitters so that, the original plan outlined every few houses. And so it's not, people think that 5G is just millimeter wave. It's not, but there's more transmitters and there's more frequency ranges. And specifically with regards to the millimeter wave, with Dr. Rashid Buttar, and he talks about CIA declassified research reveals massive bioeffects from 5G millimeter wave radiations.
Physics of this, how it all works. Like you said, when you have fewer bars on your phone, you have to understand your phone is using more energy to transmit in order to reach the tower. And so you need to understand this dynamic of when more energy is produced and what are its effects. And also, I found that a lot of people don't realize that 5G is a directional signal, whereas, you know, 4G and 3G is what you could say planar, but omnidirectional, but typically on a horizon plane. Whereas 5G, it's an antenna array that electronically can focus a beam precisely at your location and can track you, and it does. That's how it works. It doesn't broadcast your 5G communications to the whole city. And one of the ways it's able to multiplex so many calls at the same time is because it's only sending narrow beams to certain users where they are. Well, that means that now you are in a cone of energy that is not existing 20 feet away from you. You're literally in a cone of energy at all times when you're using a 5G phone like that, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's some aspects of 5G that are not fully defined, and we do largely because industry keeps those secrets very close to our chest. 5G, the millimeter wave aspect of 5G, so the higher frequencies, usually 28 gigahertz to 60 gigahertz, do have that like laser beam like directional component to their functionality that can be avoided by, again, going in airplane mode. And when you use your phone, if you have a smartphone, just look up if you have to and do everything you can to switch out of 5G to back to 4G. 3G is optimal, but very few phones just support only 3G right now.
That's true.
And phone companies are trying to normalize it. They're trying to push it. They're trying to make it so that you can't select, non-5G, but that's a definite positive step in the right direction, and you can make your phone selection, with this information going forward. What phone you're going to use, if you're going to even use a phone. And this is a whole other aspect of this conversation, that even when you're in airplane mode, and even when you have privacy location services off, many, I believe, especially of the new phones, can still offer government and corporate ability to track you. Oh, clearly. So. This is, again, I don't know if we want to talk about this, but there is information going out there around this PSYOP or this event that may or may not be happening with regards to, using frequencies from 5G towers and other EMF sources. And I think perhaps Gwen towers is the idea, the large towers, to activate or change health in our body right now.
Well, I do want to mention that, but on a practical note, first, let me just remind the audience to use a de-Googled phone, because if you use a de-Googled phone, which is a phone that doesn't run the Google Android operating system, it's completely de-Googled, and it doesn't run the Apple iPhone system either. That because Google phones, which is all normal Android phones, are all Google phones, and Apple phones are constantly reporting metadata and keylog trackers and other things to the servers of Google and Apple, which means they're broadcasting very frequently in the background when you aren't aware of it. So they're actually using more battery power, and they're subjecting you to more radiation. So if you have a de-Googled phone, that phone is not spying on you constantly. And, consumers demand convenience, but they're being lied to about the cost of that convenience. Now, consumers always want more and more bandwidth, and to watch videos or live stream or whatever. And as you know, the higher the throughput of the bandwidth, the more dangerous the technology becomes, because there's more energy involved in the actual wavelengths and frequencies that are necessary to carry that bandwidth. Well, do you think that when people are properly educated about the risks of harm, that they will be willing to give up some convenience in order to protect their biology? Or do you think that many will just say, I don't care? Because there's plenty of people who smoke cigarettes right now, or who, jump out of airplanes, which is maybe safe if you do it safely, but not everybody lives. Or how about base jumping? People do that, and a lot of them die. So what do you think the response by consumers is going to be?
I did jump out of an airplane once.
And you made it.
And I made it.
It's still here.
I think it's been said, obviously, that it is perhaps an unfortunate aspect of humanity, of mankind, that things need to be really bad before most of us would change, almost to the point of it being involuntary. And so I think, to answer that question, Mike, I see it as, I mean, Jesus said, and there's other writings or whatever, it said at the end of this age, there's going to be sheep and there's going to be wheat and chaff, sheep and wolves. There's going to be a separation. And I think that separation really is about choice. And some would say it's about DNA as well. Cal has a really interesting perspective on that. But the choice that we have is found fundamental to, I think, this experience in this physical universe, right? And so some people, when confronted and presented even softly with the information that, oh, you're doing a thing that's causing you and your family harm, would respond to it right away. Yeah, not to get too far into the Jesus analogy, but maybe that's the fertile soil that he talks about. And others, would hear it and be like, think about it for a minute, but then go back to the life of convenience. And so I think we're really being asked at a deep level to come out of these programs, to come out of this programming and these frequencies that are around us, kind of outside of us, and probably more prevalent in cities, both in terms of wireless frequencies and technology related and other forms of EMF, and also in terms of like thought frequencies and how this whole matrix control system works, because we really have to wake up, engage at a deep level, and say yes to life and no thanks to the matrix control system. And that's what we're learning how to do, I think, in a really powerful way right now.
And do you find that more people are becoming electrosensitive? Because, I've used this term electropollution. As the pollution becomes more prevalent, it seems like, at least in my knowledge base, but I'm asking you, that we're finding more and more people becoming hypersensitive to electropollution. Is that something that you're documenting or noticing?
I think so. And I tend to notice it if you're more a feeling, than thinking person, and if you're connected with your environment, if you can go to nature and sort of like, feel environmental energies, and if you're sensitive that way, then and sensitive to perhaps, in aspects of consciousness or spirituality or whatever, it seems like there is some sort of correlation there, that there is going to be more likely to be a sensitivity with electromagnetic radiation. And I have experienced some weird things over the years, and feeling the energies and different things that seem to be from EMF, as probably most of your viewers have, Mike, in terms of like, well, this never used to bother me, this holding my phone when it's on, not on airplane mode, or just use of Wi-Fi, or just ringing in the ears, or just I feel so much better when I unplug my smart TV. The place that I'm living at right now came furnished, and I realized I had my EMF testing device, which everyone should have. It's the best investment you can make for $150, and having an EMF testing device, so you can see, this is becoming paramount. We need one of these so you can see all the invisible sources around you, and then take steps to either unplug them or deal with them.